Good morning, everybody. It's March 27th, about 10 o'clock, just a little above freezing. It's 34 degrees. This is that white oak stave that was just cut down, 4 days ago, 4 days ago. And 2 days ago, I split it, shaped it, and made a bow blank out of it 2 days ago. And I steamed it, and I peeled the cambium off like a banana after steaming it for an hour and 15 minutes. It was shaped to a 2x2 stave. So when I first split it, the moisture was in the 20s. And then I have a piece of log down here, piece of stave here that was split off. And it's been sitting out drying for a while, but let's see what we got. we got 16% moisture in that log. And what we have here, we got 9% in the riser. We got 7% in the limbs as far as moisture. And what I'm doing today is, this limb has a little dip. I'm going to try to get it a little level. On this end, it twists this way. It twists this way. And on this limb, it twists this way. So I don't want to steam it again. I'm just going to spend some time, and I'm going to heat it up. It's got enough moisture. I'm going to use the heat gun. And I'm going to work my way from the riser, this quarter section, out a little at a time, and try to get it to conform to the backset jig, which is actually the fire hardening jig. Once I get it to conform, I'll reverse the clamps, and then depending on moisture and everything else, I'll hydrate it. I'll determine when I'm going to fire harden it. You see the limbs are a little thicker. Maybe they're like 5/8 or so. 5/8 after all the tool marks are sanded off. And with the red oak bow I made, which shoots really nice, I was shocked to find out that was only going to make a 24-pound bow because of the limbs were thick, but the wood is a little more pliable. So I got a really nice red oak shooting bow. So I thought white oak with the closer cell structure, closer pores, tighter pores, would be a little stiffer, but I got this floor tillered now, and it's flexing pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire harden this, and once it's fire hardened, I think I'm going to try seeing what kind of weight I get out of it. And as it is now, we're at 66 inches. I only have a 26.5-inch draw. I may make it 64 inches, and that'll give me a little more weight. Get a little more weight out of this one. So, look. See? I don't want to force anything. I'd rather heat it and get it to conform. But that might be the plan. I might take an inch off each side just so I have a little stronger bow. So I'll show you what happens after I heat it with the heat gun. It's going to take some time. Whenever I use the heat gun, I go like an inch off, and I go into the middle of the riser and out for the first quarter to heat it up. Once it gets pliable, I gently tighten them. It's not like when you steam something and it's pliable and you got to go real fast and quick to get it to conform before it cools. This here, you heat it up, let it become pliable, and gently tighten it down. Just to let you know too, when you put the clamps on and you're doing this, make sure the clamps are on the other side, so you don't have to go around all the clamps. Okay, it's easier just to go like this, and do the first quarter, the inner quarter first, work your way from the riser out, and work your way to the tips. Okay? Just wanted to show you what I'm doing, in case you haven't seen any of my videos before, and I'll show you when it's done. Took about an hour, 15 minutes on the inners, 15 minutes on the outers, and I got it to conform to the jig fairly well. And then what I'm going to do is reverse the clamps, and it'll be set for fire hardening. Now I want to show you something. These were twisted, pretty big dips. And you look at all these clamps I got here, right? And you say, what's with all those clamps? Well, you don't want to stress the wood. So even though I have all these clamps, I just turn them a little bit as I heat them up. If they want to go, they go. If they don't, they don't. But I don't put a lot of pressure. I just let them snug up gentle. And we got it down with kind of an even amount of pressure. Now when I flip these clamps for fire hardening, since it conformed to the jig, I won't need all these clamps. And as a matter of fact, I'll lay this flat down, and I'm going to take one at a time and flip it so that the screws are down below, and the belly of the boat, the part that faces your belly, will be into the fire with just these flat clamps like I always do. So the moisture, I'm going to stop this here. I'm going to get the moisture meter and just show you what we got. And as always, after I give a good heat treating, it's 0. It dries it out. It takes a lot of the moisture out. And when you cut down a live tree, I believe part of the fire hardening process is to use a heat gun and a jig, or even if you had a flat bow and you didn't want to put any backset or anything on it, lay it on a 2x4, clamp it, and use the heat gun. It takes, when you have a lot of moisture, like from a fresh cut tree, it removes a lot of moisture, and it'll keep it from cracking when you fire harden it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a wet rag now, and I'm going to wipe it down once, and I'll see how the wind is, and just want to put some moisture back in, just a wet rag, dripping wet, wipe it once, and then later on, a couple hours, I may fire harden this. It'll be dry, it won't be wet. It ain't like I'm going to introduce water and cook it and have it crack. I'm just going to put some water back in it, and in an hour or two, this will be dry to the touch, and I'll be able to fire harden it. So that seems the plan. Unless something pops up, it's getting fire hardened today. We have the clamps reversed for fire hardening, and we got a wet rag. I'm going to introduce some moisture back into the wood. And we're going to let it stay and dry out naturally for an hour or two. It's still a little chilly, a little windy. I'm going to wait till a little this afternoon, and I'm going to fire harden this. Clamps are reversed, hydrated, now getting some sun to dry up. Then a little later, we're going to do a little fire hardening. Fire hardening the white oak today. Today's the day we're fire hardening the white oak. And at 66 inches, it'll have 1.5 inches or so of back set. And with this is my gutter system that I use for fire hardening. You can watch my other videos. There's more details actually on how I made it. It's expandable. It was only a $12 gutter. There's a channel cut, and it's expandable for the size of the bow you're cooking. So anyway, you can look that up. I'm going to show you how we adjust the heat. The coals are still catching, so we have to check it, but you put your palm underneath the wood. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If it's too hot, you raise it up 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Raise it up a little. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And that's how we adjust the temperature. Keith Shannon came up with that. And I don't know how he did, but I tried different things. I tried measuring from the coals to the wood, and you can't get an accurate reading. You can't go over with a thermometer because it jumps up so fast, it's not consistent. So that's the best way of checking the correct height for the wood. So as it's cooking now, the wood will become soft and pliable. This is white oak. It's kind of weird cooking white oak because white oak is a firewood that we use. So, but as you can see, we have some space on the jig, and it's okay because as this cooks, the wood will be soft and pliable, and we'll be able to turn the clamps as it's cooking. And what we have to do is check as the coals catch a little more. Let me stand over here, the wind shifted. As the coals catch a little more, it'll probably get hotter, and we'll have to readjust the height on it. Two things that are important when you're fire hardening are fireplace gloves, these big fireplace gloves. Okay, and when you move it, I suggest you put them on. And this is just a plain old stick that we use for leveling out the coals. If there's a hot spot, we can knock the coals around. Where it's shaped, I have foil lined in this gutter, and I build up the foil on the ends so we can use a little less coals and still get that nice heat all the way up to the end. So once again, now that it's catching, we're going to just check the contour, and then we'll check the heat again. We'll check the clamps. Okay, we're good, we're good. So every 10 minutes I'm checking it. And we have a start time, even though start times really aren't that important. I like to cook these for like around 2 hours. So it's around 12:30 now. And I'm going to check this every 10 minutes. Clamps, knock off ashes with the stick, add coals where it needs to be. But in a half hour, I'm going to pick it up and show you what it looks like. Now, when you're dealing with wood like white oak or red oak, it's a little thicker, and it may take a little longer. You don't want to, you got to make sure that the coal's smoking and not the wood. If the wood's smoking, you got to raise it up. So patience, time, show you in a half hour. I just want to show you, we've been going for about 15 minutes. Look at these clamps. The moisture's coming out of them. The wood is getting pliable. You don't want to force it. You want to be gentle like when you're heat treating it. Okay? And it's slowly pulling the wood up to the backset jig. If there's any space, it's taken out. Coming along really good here, look. See? Quite a bit. Now there's a little bit of ash going on this too. And I'm just going to take the stick. And with the stick, I'm just going to knock some ash around. And when you knock the ash off the coals, it maintains the heat. Okay. We'll recheck it with our hand to see if the heat's the correct height, if the bow is the correct height. Okay. It's a little hot now that I knocked the ashes off, that's for sure. And because looking at these coals here, I'm going to add a few more coals. And a little longer than the half hour mark, I'm going to pick it up and show you what it looks like underneath. It's been going for a little more than a half hour. I tightened these clamps like 4 times already. And what I'm going to do now is pick it up and I'll show you what it looks like in the bottom. Got a lot warmer out. It's 50 degrees out now. Big difference from 34 this morning. So while I have it up, I'll show you, and then I'm going to knock some ash off, put a few more coals on, and then we'll put it back down. Okay, here we are from the riser, heading to the right. We got some color going on. We got some darkening going out to the tips. Here we are from the riser going to the left. We got some darkening going on out to the tips. It's looking real good. I'm really happy with it. Now we got that stick, right? Important part. Stick and big gloves, right? Fireplace gloves. Knocking off ash. Don't be afraid to be rough with it. Knock off the ash. We got some coals. You want to burn up the coals. You don't want to waste any. We're going to put some on top to catch and lower it down. So just remember, when you add coals, knock off ash, add coals, and you check the heat with your palm underneath for that 3 count. Those coals are going to catch and it's going to get hotter. So you'll have to raise it up a little, maybe use that stick to level out the coals a little, but you got to keep on checking the temperature. You don't want the wood to start smoking instead of the coals catching. We're at that hour mark. What I did with the clamps was I moved the clamps a little over an inch or two in a different spot. Made sure they're snugged up. And the reason for it is there'll be a white spot underneath where the clamp is. And I believe the fire hardening goes around regardless of the clamp, but I moved the clamp anyway. So wood combust at around 300 degrees. Some wood, I believe, like pine, and like when I did that bow out of juniper, it was smoking. I had to really watch it. It has a lower combustion rate. The white oak is holding up very well. Holds up very well with the heat treating, the fire hardening. And we're going to raise it up now at the hour mark, and I'll show you what it looks like underneath. Here we are at the riser going to the right. We got a lot darker color going down to the tips. You can see where I moved the clamps from the riser going down to the left. Got darkness all the way down. You can see where I moved the clamps. Here we are at the hour mark. We're going to aggressively knock the ash off these coals. So you can see the coals without any ash on them. All right? Don't be afraid to knock them around. Knock them good. Get the ash off. Get the coals up in the air. And this way, when we're going to add some coals for the next hour, and we're going to get a good cooking. All right? Don't worry if your stick catches on fire. Just blow it out. Okay? Stick it in the ash. It'll go out. Okay, we're going to add coals, and I'll show you when I put it down. Okay, we put it down again and added coals. Once again, pay attention to make sure the wood's not smoking. It's the coals. Check the temperature often, and check the clamps often. We'll show you in the hour and a half mark. Okay, we're about an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to pick it up and show you what it looks like. Okay, here we are at the riser going to the right. We got some deep color going right down to the tip. Here we back are at the riser going down. We have deep color going all the way down to the tips. Looking good. Okay, the ducks landed again. Like I said, they survived a couple of hunting seasons, and they always come back. They stay in the pool. They watch me shoot the bow. They're not bothered. They know it's safe here. They actually landed in the pool while I was in the pool. So they know it's a safe zone. So this bow looks really good. And it's an hour and 40 minutes. We checked it. And we're going to let it go. We're going to let it go another half hour and take it off. Yeah, this bow's been fire hardened for about 2 hours and 40 minutes. And it's got a nice color throughout, and that's what we want. And I just want to tell you, this is white oak. Most people use white oak for firewood. So you could go and get a oak tree that you're going to cut down for firewood, cut a fairly straight section out, and you can make a bow out of it. You'll have firewood and you'll have a bow, okay? I highly suggest that if you're interested, if you're a bowyer, if you want to make a bow, that you go to Shannon Outdoors and check out their fire hardening DVD. It's worth the money to buy it, and there's a lot of information there, and you'll be able to get a lot of woods that people wouldn't think you'd be able to make a bow out of, and make a bow out of it. All right. So once again, Shannon Outdoors. Check out his fire hardening DVD. And we're going to take this off and put it on the table, and I'm going to show you what it looks like underneath on the table. We're going to let it cool, and we're going to hydrate it. Took it off the jig. It's got color throughout. We're going to let it cool off just a little bit more, and the clamp's coming off, and I'll show you. White oak bow has been fire hardened for 2.5 hours, and I got about 1/4 of an inch of spring back, which in my opinion is acceptable. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, we got about 1 inch. Hold on, let me put it on here so we can see for sure. We got probably 1.5 inches of the back set. Let's see what it looks like this. Okay, you can see the nice back set we have. Let me show you a close-up of the bow. It's cooked all the way down into the fade out. Into the fade out here. I don't know if you can see, we have just 2 little cracks here, about 4 inches. Little checks here. They should sand out when I tiller it. And if they don't, what I have done in the past is I mixed a little AE40, put it in there, let it dry for the 24 hours. I was able to tiller it and sand it, and I still have bows that shoot fine, absolutely fine. I only had 1 or 2 that had that problem, and they're still shooting great today. But most of the time, when you tiller these bows, and I don't want to put any pressure on because they're not hydrated, I can sand these away, sand that little line away. After you heat treat or fire harden the bow, this is the most important thing you could do. Look at the wet rag. You see the wet rag? You see how wet it is? The water is running off this. All right, and we are going to hydrate this. We're going to soak this up. I'm going to hydrate this several times this evening. I got to put moisture back in. Now, fire hardening tightens the cells, makes it a little waterproof, makes it come back springier, stronger, but you can introduce moisture. It's not waterproof. It just makes it a little bit more water resistant, okay? Changes the structure of the cells. So here we go. I'm going to add water to this a couple of times. And here's my white oak fire hardened bow that we're going to be tillering in a couple of days when I get a chance. Thanks for watching. Watch my other videos on Bare Bow Joe. There should be a tillering video coming up on this.